So this last weekend I did a dopamine detox and I went fully hard mode. So basically what it means is no electronics, no human contact and no food for at least 24 hours. But I was able to actually extend it just a little bit because I was helping my friend move between apartments on Saturday. So before I went to him, I left my phones in the house. Then for the rest of the day we were just moving furniture and I didn't have any electronics devices, which was kind of funny because at the end we were so proud that we actually hauled so much stuff into the truck. I wanted to take a photo of it and I couldn't because I didn't have my phone. So what I had to do instead is actually to remember it, and this is kind of like, the stuff that we did back in 2005, remembering things instead of taking a stupid photo of everything. Yeah, it was fun. So after I helped him move, I went to my mom's house, which is just by the forest, and she wasn't there because she's on vacation, so I had the house all to myself. There was nobody there, and I started at about 10 p.m. I quit human contact and quit all eating, and then entire Sunday was basically the full dopamine detox. So I woke up very early because it was pretty easy, I didn't need an alarm clock. And I started by taking my notebook, taking a bottle of water, and I went to the forest. I sat down on a sandy hill and I did my breathing, the morning breathing. It was like 7 a.m. And after that I went for a walk and I stopped at a couple of spots during that walk in the forest and I meditated and I tried to prolong it as much as I could. But at some points I actually let my mind wander, so I wasn't really pushing all thought away, but instead I was kind of focusing on what my head would actually produce for me if it didn't have all the external stimuli. So basically the entire day was me walking, sitting down, meditating or just thinking, and drinking water and then taking some notes if I had any thoughts that were worth remembering. So did I reach some form of higher enlightenment? So like what happened? Did I become a super being because of that or something? Well, I can tell you this day was probably the most boring day that I've ever had. But it's not really that bad because actually I realized something. I realized that actually most of the time it's really boring. And we kind of distract ourselves from the boredom by doing the swipe gesture, the swipe up and down, scrolling infinite feeds of shit. And this is still boredom, it's just kind of tricking ourselves into thinking it's not, but it's just the same. And with the real boredom, with like the real kind of, I don't have anything to do today, you actually get to explore some parts of your mind that I think were long abandoned. And I think that's a much better kind of boredom. It's like, maybe let's call it controlled boredom. So here is a quick excerpt from the journal that I kept. And this is what my mind was actually going towards when it didn't have any of those standard things that occupies it. And I'm gonna read just a couple, but there were definitely more. And I'm not saying that those insights have any huge, like life-changing value, but I think that they can be pretty interesting. So first of all, while walking through the forest, I realized that I didn't have any GPS to track the amount of miles or kilometers that I took. And it was really weird because I kind of had the instinct to share this, and I took a really long walk and I felt like this is kind of really stupid, like a GPS dependency. And what doesn't matter, a nice walk is a nice walk. Okay, and also being distraction free led me to notice a lot of the little things around me. Like I passed a small beetle on the trail and I figured that he might be like a sports car and then I'm the truck. Kind of. But I also realized that my focus kind of jumped between a lot of different things semi-randomly. One other thing that I realized is that quiet is heavily underappreciated. And most of my initial focus was on the external, so just noticing a lot of the details from the outside world, but I knew that I had to explore the internal as well at some point. So one other thing is that I realized that The forest is probably one of the only places that remain seemingly unchanged, because like if you had a time machine and you brought in a person from like 100 years ago, and even if you took them to the beach, they would still feel weird because of all the stuff that's there, that's new and modern. And in the city, they would just go crazy. And then in the forest, it basically looks the same. It's just a constant. So now I have some main takeaways from around 2 p.m. Well, first of all, there's no rush with the digital world, it can wait. And I want to go to sleep without any technology for at least a couple hours, because both of those days I had really awesome sleep. And then mornings without technology, because I'm doing my morning routines, my morning breathing, but I sometimes check my phone or check my email before I start doing that. So right now I'm not gonna do that anymore. Being a little bit mindful about yourself, your surroundings and nature and other people, it's also pretty good. And I also realized I really missed my wife, so that also means that happiness is really close, and sometimes you just don't really notice it, but it's there. And I didn't really think a lot about work, like almost none at all, but I did think and reflect about my various accomplishments, from being in some bands and playing shows in some European cities, and starting a poetry group, being published in poetry books, and making a very popular mobile game, starting the company, and all the other things that I'm doing. I kind of reflected back on it, and I felt really good. Like, I felt that I didn't really think about the stuff that I did in life that often. Like, even those big wins that I had, I kind of keep forgetting about them. And it may be good because it motivates you to do more, but at the same time you should be grateful for what you actually accomplished already. And I think that I felt a lot more rested in general, like my head and my body was more focused and more alive. And I also did the fast, the 24-hour fast during this whole experiment. And I realized, because I've done fasting almost every week for a while now, at least 24 hours and sometimes 40 hours. And I realized that it's a lot more difficult if you don't have all the distractions. Because if you have the distractions, it's pretty easy to not eat for like 40 hours, because you can just watch a movie or work on something. But if all you have is your thoughts, then the hunger is actually gonna come at you with like double the force. So yeah, don't recommend fasting while doing any kind of digital detoxing. And I have this little piece here, what if somebody asked me what it was like? And I wrote, well, if you think enlightenment opens up back into like a 2005 era, then prepare yourself for a very boring day. But I believe that's the whole point. Because we fight viciously, all the boredom, and we fight it through mostly that vertical swipe, just moving shit, like an endless stream of shit around. And it's just basically another loop, but it's really pretty boring, because we don't really get anything, like those small dopamine hits, just wasting time. So what I think that people should do, and what I think that I'm starting to do from now on, is to accept that life is supposed to be a little boring sometimes. And you should focus on the highlights, the good stuff that you can do, how you can help others, how you can help yourself, how you can grow, and how you can explore. But you need to be ready that there's gonna be a lot of boring in between of that, and that's good. And you need to just realize that you are able to be bored and be happy at the same time. Just be grateful for what you have. Just sit down and be bored. Don't fall into the trap of vertical scrolls, because it's just still boredom, but it's just boredom away from yourself. And one more little quote from this. Escapism into feed distraction is a dead end of living your life through a borrowed lens. So as you can see, my mind is being pretty poetic here. Maybe it's like a B-rate poetry, but still. So that focused boredom, I think, is really good, because you have the time to contemplate. You have the time to pause and think about stuff, not think about other people's stuff and what they're sharing. Think about your stuff, your head, your mental state, everything like that. And being bored with yourself and with just yourself is the best way to do that. I'm just, if I'm gonna be bored, I'm just gonna be bored, you know, in my own head. And I think that it's gonna be a way more grounded experience. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be a little bit more in the moment and just don't let myself be bored with technology as a distraction, and it's best to just use it as a tool. So use it if you want to create something, not if you want to just kill time. So this is it for today. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and you can share it as well. I know it's a little bit different than most of my content, but I believe that to be successful you need to actually get out of some of the comfort zones and try those new things. And design is really good, but it's all about being happy with who you are as well. So take care. Cheers.